Well, we have some breaking news right now. A small plane has crashed.
Oh my gosh.
You all right?
So, a few days ago, I was flying the 235 here at my home airport and had an accident. I don't know how many of you have ever had an incident while flying, or an incident period, or any type of a car accident or anything like that, but I can tell you it happens really fast and it can be really scary. Luckily, I'm okay. The 235, which is one of my favorite airplanes to fly, isn't very okay, but I think it can be fixed. The other day when we were filming, it was a perfect day, beautiful skies. I thought it was a great chance to take the 235 up, do some takeoffs and landings at lunchtime, like I often do. But that day was going to be a little bit different.
Oh my gosh.
You guys see him?
Yeah, I'm gonna hop out.
Thanks, Catch you later.
You all right?
Yeah, like literally landed fine, and it hooked left, and it took all I had to keep it level, because it wanted to flip. It kept, you know what I mean?
What, like come up? The tail pick
side
up?
to
Or?
side.
Oh my gosh.
I took off 2.9. Everything was perfect. I was coming down final, figuring, man, my numbers are perfect. My altitude's perfect. The attitude is perfect right down the center line for just a greaser. And that didn't happen. So right when I touched down, the airplane turned hard left, you know, and I fell to the right. I think giving it a little bit of throttle because my hand was on the throttle. And then, you know, I got on the brakes right away. The airplane skid sideways off the runway into the grass. As I saw the grass coming, I pulled back, and then all I could see is sky. The next few seconds, it was me fighting to keep it from rolling onto its side. But the thing I was worried about mostly going into the grass was digging in and flipping. You know, so I ended up fighting the airplane to keep it upright. And when the front end finally came down, there's a little hump in the grass, and it folded the nose gear under, the prop hit, and then it slid on its nose until it finally rested in the side of the hill. Once it came to a rest, you know, I shut the fuel off. You know, I went into my training, you know, that I got from my instructor, which was to shut everything down, shut the fuel off, make sure everything's off, and exit the aircraft as quickly as you can, because you don't know if it's going to blow up. You don't know what all happened, and it happens so quickly.
Do you know how much fuel is up on board?
It's pretty much fuel full. I have the fuel turned off, okay. So just that right main's almost down.
Wow, that prop took a beating.
No. It nearly almost flipped a couple times.
What, just like caught something weird and almost tipped?
Yeah. You see it was skidding.
Oh yeah, I see the tire.
The front wheel isn't touching until like here.
Do you think somehow it was just balanced out enough that it wasn't putting that much weight onto it? And by the time you got to here where the hill starts to slope up?
I think that's a good point, yeah. The airport did want to remove the airplane because it was in a place that could be dangerous for the airplane and for other people. We were able to remove it. Luckily, we actually have some recovery equipment here at Rebuild Rescue, because we've been thinking about doing aircraft recovery. I don't know about you guys, but rescuing wrecked airplanes, I don't know, I think that could be pretty interesting. So we're gonna go over and we're gonna help the airport move the Cherokee out the way of the runway because an airplane could definitely come in and crash into the Cherokee. They don't have anybody to do it right now, so we're gonna help them move it off and away from the runway. It'll keep the airplanes coming in safe, and it will keep the Cherokee safe, so we can try to figure out, you know, what happened to it.
Like fuel mostly stopped.
Yeah, it was just that tip tank. They're fiberglass, they crack open so easily.
Yeah.
And you got a bunch of nice toys.
Gotta have toys. Especially if dumb stuff like this is gonna happen.
Imagine how sad he'd be if that was his only one.
Oh, hey, that's a good point.
Right? There's a bright side of everything.
Turning a negative into a positive.
Exactly, exactly.
Still attached. Want to make sure if it comes back, it can only go so far.
Yeah.
The next few days, the only thing I was doing was beating myself up. Did I do something right? Did I do something wrong? Did I make a bad decision? You know, it's perfect air, the winds are perfect. Like, what happened? And I really didn't have an answer. So we contacted the FAA, and we knew they would come out to inspect the airplane. And honestly, there's a lot of worry. There's a lot of worry as a new pilot. There's a lot of worry as an aircraft owner when you have the FAA coming and they're going to be inspecting things. They're going to be inspecting you and what you did during this incident. At the end of the day, I was lucky. All I have is a scratch on my thumb and maybe a pretty bruised ego. But with the FAA's help, we did figure out what happened. Let's check it out. I was really beating myself up about what happened or didn't happen that day. And we did figure it out with the help of the FAA investigators. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think happened? What would make an airplane turn left hard, abruptly, and suddenly? The answer is actually right behind me. I know you guys that are pilots that have landed before, you know whether a landing is going to be good or not. And this landing was going to be a greaser. I touched down right here. And if you look, you can see this left tire is skidding already. There's a skid mark here. There's no skid mark on the right. And if you follow this, it started pulling to the left right away. It surprised me. I mean, the winds here were absolutely perfect. It was going to the left side of runway and it was going quick, like really quick. There was no time for me to react other than seeing the grass and pulling back. I was on the brakes, wanted to keep it from flipping over. And then from this point, this is what I saw. Front end was up, which I wanted to keep it up. I wanted to carry the front end as much as I could because this is obviously soft field. This is kind of marshy and there's plenty of bumps. And I was really worried that front end was going to go down. I was going to flip and end up on my roof. My reaction was obviously to save myself and save the airplane. When I came to a stop, I did have half throttle, and I also had some of my skin above my throttle was stuck to the dash. So I'm sure when I had a hold of the throttle and it cut left, my body turned right. Subsequently, I gave it some throttle. Coming across the numbers at 70, 80 miles an hour, it didn't take long for me to get this far. You can tell the nose is still off the ground. You can see a couple, like a little bit of a skip mark or two here up until you get here. And I know it's hard to see. There's a ridge line right here. And the front end dug in here and it rolled the gear right under. Prop hit, then it bounced a little bit, then it hit here, then it hit here, and it finally came to a rest right up this hill, and it slid to a stop here. I don't know how many of you guys have you know, been in an incident in an aircraft. I raced, and I mentioned this in videos before. I raced sprint cars, dirt track sprint cars for years. I've been in a lot of accidents. I've flipped and rolled at over 120, 30 miles an hour. I've hit walls head on. It's really hard to recollect what happens during an accident, you know, or during an incident when so many things are happening so quick. I feel like I was really, really lucky to have some of that experience and be able to react. The reality is, it was such a beautiful day. There was no winds. I knew I was going to grease it. I knew I was going to have a perfect landing. That's when something gets you. If there would have been some winds, I would have been up on the rudders. I would have been I was paying attention, but I would have been up on the rudders. I would have been ready for something to happen like that. Not knowing I had the problem that I had caught me off guard. Let's go take a look at the airplane. This morning, there was two gentlemen from the FAA that came to investigate the crash because we did report it, something that is required by the FAA because they have to figure out, was there a failed aircraft component? Was it negligence on someone's part? Or should I even be flying an airplane? They pulled the cowling off and they pulled a few other things off. If we look this thing over, you know, the prop shot, obviously there's nothing we're gonna do with that. I'm thinking that the crankshaft is probably bent. The spec for this is a 0.005 for a prop strike. I think this definitely is a prop strike. You know, the engine does move. It'll be interesting to see, you know, how bent the crankshaft is. Is it cracked? I've seen cracked crankshafts. We had a ton of oil leaking out of the underside of the engine when we were towing it off of the crash area. And actually what happened, if you guys look here, actually the airbox, this nice bracket setup, pushed up into the oil release when it impacted. So it just slowly drained the oil out. I was fearful that there was a crack in the block or something, but there isn't. As far as what we could see, there's no cracks in the block. The airbox did get impacted. I can see the airbox is definitely bent, so we'll have to replace the airbox. None of the firewall mounts where the engine mount mounts to, none of those have any type of damage. So at this point, it looks like all the damage is firewall forward, which is a really good sign. We're gonna have to replace the engine mount bushings. We're gonna have to overhaul the engine, and this is an 0540. It is not a cheap engine to overhaul, but it was near TBO. It was near timed out. You know, it had all but 2,000 hours on it. Obviously now we're gonna rebuild it. Hopefully the components inside the engine are okay. Hopefully the crankshaft is okay. A lot of times the vacuum pump will have, the gear will be sheared off or the shaft. Usually they'll need replaced. The mags are always questionable. It did have a brand new Surefly electronic mag on it. The exhaust is going to need replaced for sure. Obviously the whole engine mount front suspension will have to Magnaflux the wheel and the fork assembly and thoroughly check that out. It's going to need front wheel pants, and it may need some work in on the rudder pedals, because I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't bend something with my feet during the whole thing, because I can tell you I slammed the brakes on. Really didn't feel like going four-wheeling in my airplane. So, and really the only other thing, and I say the only other thing when the whole front of the airplane is smashed and ruined, but the only other thing is the right tip tank. It hit the grass, and I remember when that happened because it rolled hard right when I was entering the grass, because I remember steering hard left and then it went extra hard left, kind of like when you're spinning out in a car and it just whips around each way. It was doing that back and forth. It did rupture the tank here, so I'm gonna have to replace that tip tank, and that's about it. So we're gonna have to get that, get the engine apart, check out internally what's wrong with it. It's gonna be a full overhaul. We're gonna overhaul everything from the firewall forward, and we're actually gonna double check everything to do with the rudders, with any of the controls, make sure nothing was stressed. We're gonna go over this with a fine-tooth comb. This is gonna be a really nice airplane when it's done. It was a nice airplane before this happened, but it'll be even better. I just didn't think that this was gonna be a rebuild rescue, but we're gonna rescue it, we're gonna rebuild it. It's gonna be better than it was. And then I'm gonna do a takeoff, I'm gonna do a landing, I'm gonna grease it, and I'm gonna make sure the tire doesn't go flat. Oh, wait, I didn't show you guys. I can tell you when I pre-flight, I go over an airplane inside and out, even if someone already did it. And the reason I do it is because I want to be safe. I want everybody around me to be safe. I pre-flighted this 235 thoroughly. I always do. I check air pressures. I do so much more than what everybody normally does. But one thing that you can't always catch is something like that. So somewhere from where I had it parked outside to where I took off, I got a nail or a screw. We haven't pulled it out yet. The FAA inspectors that were here found it. They did a thorough job, and they pulled the wheel pan off and saw that right away, told the whole story of what happened in 235. So one screw, it can be the difference of life and death. I didn't feel it on takeoff, but I sure felt it when I landed. So nobody pulled that out, but we've been trying to figure out what exactly it is. I mean, what do you guys think it's gonna be? Stuck in a tire, what are you gonna pick up on an airport taxiway that's gonna get stuck in your tire? We found some nails, we found some different things laying around at different times, but nothing in an airplane tire. And I have no idea what that is. It is not a nail, and it is very sharp. And you can even see that it was hitting the concrete, hitting the blacktop a pretty good bit. I don't know. Maybe you guys could tell me, what do you use around an airport that would look like that? As we pulled the airplane out, we noticed that the left rear tire was flat. We didn't know if this was before or after the accident. This tells us that it was before. There was an air leak. We did pump up the tire. It took about 3 minutes for it to lose, all pressure. So that's about the amount of time, give or take, that it takes to do a takeoff and do a landing. It makes perfect sense. And it also makes perfect sense as to why those skid marks, why the left skid mark was wider than the right one, although on a left skid, there's going to be more weight on a right tire and less weight on a left tire. So you would think the right skid would be thicker. Well, the fact that the left skid had a wider skid mark, that tells the tail that that was flat when I landed. That's what jerked me over to the left. It all started making sense, but this was the missing link that the FAA inspectors found. This was an incident and not an accident. So if you guys have anybody that you know that's a pilot or flies airplanes or does, or pretty much does anything where this could affect them, go ahead and share this video with them. You know, send them a note. Make sure they watch it, because it only takes like one share. It only takes, you know, even talking to somebody and letting them know, you know, this is, it's something to watch for. You know, when you're pre-flighting, check your tires, check them closely, check the pressure. You know, if you can, look at them, see if there's anything stuck in your tire. I don't know when it got stuck in there. It could have been at any moment. It could have been right before I took the runway. I don't know, but it could save a life. That's why we share this stuff. That's why there's the FAA. That's why there's investigations. That's why it's so important for us all to be safe, because I want all of you coming back next week and being able to watch the channel, being able to share the channel with us. Check around your airports and your hangars. This could have been this could have been the last Rebuild Rescue episode right here. Luckily, it didn't turn out that way. Luckily, I'm okay. Luckily, we're going to be able to get this thing fixed, get it back in the air, and we can take you guys along. Guys, thank you so much for watching Rebuild Rescue. Thank you for being part of the rescue crew. If you got a minute, give us a subscribe. Take care.